So if you look off to my left here, you can see I got my dad's CB cabinet started. Now, this is going to be an open cabinet. It's going to house a couple of amps, which need a lot of airflow. So this cabinet and that cabinet have to remain open. The amps are rather heavy, so we wanted to put them on some heavy drawer slides. That way he could pull them out and work on them. This was my original thought. A tray with drawer slides that the amp can be housed on to pull in and out. But as you can see the drawer slides. And there was going to be a lip on the side. That way I'd be able to mount the 2-inch drawer slides to the 3/4 inch plywood. But it's rather ugly. So we're going to try to remedy that. Because the only thing in my wood shop that I want to be ugly is me. Anything coming out of my wood shop other than me needs to be pretty nice looking. At least I think so anyway. So I have a couple of ideas that we're going to do in this video, and I'm going to see if I can't hide that and make that nice and pretty. So let's get to it. Because I need 1-inch stock, the only 1-inch I had in my shop were these pallet stringers. Now these are hardwood stringers, so I ran them through the joiner and the planer to bring them down to just a hair over 1 inch. That'll give me room for the drawer slides and give me plenty of room to be able to hold securely to the 3/4 inch plywood. The drawer slides are 2 inches in depth, so I took them over to the table saw and ripped them all down to 2 inches. Now I need 8 of these in total for the sides, and I need 8 in total for the fronts and the backs. So I had to cut up quite a few of these stringers, which kind of exhausted my stock at the moment. After getting 2 dimensions taken care of, we're going over to the miter saw. I set up a stop block, and we are going to square up one side, and then we are going to move it over to the stop block and cut it to the final dimension. I'm using the stop block because I want these to be pretty square. The more square they are, the better they will slide on those drawer runners, and the better they'll look overall. So with this stop block, I will do the sides, and then I will reposition the stop block to do the fronts and the backs. That way everything is nice and square. With the sides all taken care of, we go back to the table saw. And I take the drawer slide and I set it up against the fence and try to get it as close to the outside edge of the blade as possible. What I want to do here is create, I guess it would be a mortise or a dado for this drawer slide to slide into. I want a space just big enough for the drawer slide to be snug, but I don't want it to be too tight and jam up. I want it to slide nice and smooth, but not be seen. After getting that cut finished up, we lower the blade and we run it through on its side. What that will do is that'll remove that piece of wood and leave the space for the drawer slide to sit into nicely. Now that we've got our sides and fronts taken care of, we can move on to the bottoms, which would be the 3/4 inch plywood. Now you could measure this and probably get pretty close, but I decided I was going to take this drywall square and put it up against the front, put my drawer front and back behind the board, and be able to draw a line exactly where I needed to cut those boards. Now that I have them cut up, I have to measure for the sides. Again, no measuring tape needed. I just set the fronts and the backs up and set the side beside it, and that tells me exactly where I need to cut my sides at. When I'm cutting my sides, I make sure to cut them both at the same time. That way I know for sure they're exactly the same size. If you haven't figured it out by now, I cut my sides earlier a little long, that way I could cut them to the final dimension right here. With everything looking like it's going to fit pretty good, now it's time to glue and screw this thing together. After getting some glue put on it, we can lay it flat on the bench and put the side right flat with the bench as well. Now I'm going to throw some brad nails in it just to kind of hold it in place while I counter drill, and then we'll run some countersinking screws right in the side of it, and that'll hold it nice and tight. The reason I'm using screws to hold this in instead of just the brad nails is because, like I'd mentioned earlier, some of these amps are pretty heavy. One I know is like 78 pounds for sure. My dad looked it up on Google, and so we wanted it to be pretty secure. I know the drawer slides are rated for like 100+ pounds, but I'm not real sure what brad nails are rated at. I'm pretty sure it's not 100 pounds. The glue might be fine, but we just wanted that little extra security. Once we got all that taken care of, I went ahead and put a round over on the bottom of the drawer to soften it up. We also went ahead and put a round over on the inside of the slide. That way it would soften that up as well. After getting everything softened up, I decided that they needed some kind of profile on the front of the drawers. So I went and got my dad, and he picked out the Coven bead bit out of my router bit set and decided that's what he wanted to go with on his drawers and his drawer slides. So I went ahead and put that on here, being sure to do the end grain side first. That way any of the tear out on the long grain side would be taken care of when I ran it through on that side. Now it's time to install the drawer slides. I take one of the cutoff pieces and set it underneath. That way my drawer will sit level and not try to walk all over the place. Then I use an 1/8 inch shim at the front so that I can set just a little bit of gap so I can punch my hole to put the screws in. I don't really want to pre-drill these screws because they are small, and I don't want to risk any strippage of these screws. Once I have the first screw installed, I can move the slide and my 1/8 inch shim back and punch the second hole. With shim there and punched hole, I can go ahead and set the second screw and go ahead and remove the rest of the assembly for the drawer slide, showing me my final hole. So after getting the other drawer slide on, obviously, we move on to the cabinet, where we take the outside of the drawer slide and we set it on a piece of 1/8 inch material so that we can go ahead and set the screws in for that. I set the front of my slide right to the edge of the front of my cabinet, and I go ahead and I set the first screw and I work my way back to the last screw. And of course, what's done to one side, you will have to do to the other side. Now, we can go ahead and set our drawers in place. There is one downfall to not being able to see the drawer slides. It kind of makes it a little hard to line them up to get them to slide in there. So with the bottom one installed, I set a spacer in place to install the second drawer slide. And then we can install the last of the drawer slides with hidden drawer slides. And just like I said, the downfall of not being able to see the drawer slides does make it a little hard to line it up. But once you get it in there, everything works just beautifully. And it looks pretty good, I think. So that's all I have for y'all today. So if you found this video helpful or interesting, leave me a like and maybe a comment. Make sure to hit that subscribe button to see this CB disc finished up. See y'all later.